All right. Hang on a second. I think we might have to cut the first couple of minutes off that video. But here we are now. Now you can see me. So we'll just give people a chance to join the video or the stream. And hopefully my volume is okay. Please let me know in the comments. And we are having a bit of technical issues here today, including the video that has been uploaded today. So that's going to be going up and being listed in about an hour or so. So if you'd like to watch the newest video that we've made about our garden and just to show the spring, to see what's going on in the garden out there, just wait until about 10:15 until that's done processing. So, oh, and we have the gremlins in the light as well. Funny that. It's always something. Let me just turn that light off real quick here because it's flickering and it's not much use. Hello, Bianca. How are you doing? Can you hear me okay? Is the sound okay? I still haven't had any feedback about the sound at all. Can you hear me okay? Is it loud enough? Is it too loud? So anyway, since that you can see me now, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. Unfortunately, I cannot probably cut the... Oh, thank you. That's great. I'm using the little lavalier microphone today. No shotgun microphones today. I am not using those anymore, I don't think. I will try to use an Omni microphone instead. Much better sound quality as well. So especially inside a room, those microphones are not that good because they cancel out noise, and including your voice. So we've got a few people joining now. You're very welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining. And today's main topic is going to be all about what kind of plants we're going to be growing here at Birdland Cottage this year. So we'll get into the main topic in a minute. I just wanted to show you, just to do a little bit of housekeeping. And I'd like to just let you know that we have just announced our next, it's a seed and plant swap, all right? But I'm just going to talk about it a little bit. So it's going to be called Homesteaders of Ireland Swap Meet. So you can bring any kind of homesteading related items, and it's going to be on the 12th of May. And there's going to be more information published about that event on our website. I'll just show you the website here real quick. So this is our website here, and you can see that okay. So you can click on upcoming courses and events. So it's just /events. And we even have a calendar here. We're going to add the May calendar shortly. So you can see we're fairly well booked. And so we have all these different courses and workshops coming up if you're interested. And we're not going to spend too much time talking about these now, but these are in-person events, so something that where you can actually get the opportunity to both meet us, but also get some practical experience in a lot of these things. For example, our chicken keeping workshop, where we'll teach you how to keep chickens for egg production. And there's more information when you click into all of these. So we also have a homestead introduction course. So that's actually where the picture came from for this before it goes live. So there's lots of things included in that, but just a little glimpse of each of these topics for only about maybe 40 minutes each. So growing food using Nordic gardening, food preservation like pressure canning and storing food and cheese waxing, that kind of thing. Keeping chickens for egg production, again, that's only an introduction, but there's also a full practical course actually that you can take now too. And home and herbal remedies, backup power and lights, home brewing as well. So we have actually got plant propagation course as well, a garden forage walk where you get to actually take free samples from our garden, and a country winemaking course. So those are all available on our website now. So get your tickets and book yourself in. I don't want to be keeping you on that too long. But our next swap meet is going to be also announced on our website shortly, so keep an eye on it. And let me just come back now. There's no way for me to avoid actually having that kind of effect into the camera when I switch screens. So yeah, definitely ask me any questions you have during this live stream about any of those kind of topics, like homesteading or growing food or preserving or whatever, all those kind of, especially like the courses, any topics related to the courses that we are running. And I'll try to get to answer those. Please put questions in all caps at the beginning of your questions so that I can pick those out easier. And so just to get into today's topic, so what kind of plants are we growing this year? Well, the short answer is whatever kind of plants are easy to grow and whatever kind of plants are useful to both, hopefully both humans and the wildlife around as well, the local ecosystem. But we do have plenty of plants that are also just ornamental, that also have benefits to the local insects, for example, like the pollinator population as well, like the willows, for example. But a lot of these plants have multiple positive effects on the local ecosystem, and they're also useful to us as well, like in terms of growing food or even like medicine and wood, for example, like fuel, or even building materials as well. So we do grow plants using various methods. For example, sometimes we grow plants from seed, which you're probably most of you will be familiar with. And we also grow plants from cuttings as well, and sometimes from tubers and crown divisions, and sometimes we even layer things like gooseberries as well. But if you want a straighter plant, it's better to use cuttings, but those are prone to dry out, so just be careful. We can talk about plant propagation a little bit more, but we want to keep it all about actual plants today rather than the methods to propagate them. So for example, some of the plants like insectaries, those would be just mainly perennial flowers that can be just planted in and around your garden beds. We like to put one or two perennial flowering plants, or even herbs, because herbs flower too, even culinary herbs like, for example, thyme, rosemary, oregano, those kind of plants. They do flower and attract beneficial insects as well. And if you have one of those kind of flowering plants that's feeding the insects with nectar at the end of your garden bed, then the insects will take care of your crops as well. Well, at least that's what we hope for. So what I was going to say, so basically all plants are useful to, in some way, to somebody in the ecology. So there isn't a plant out there that's actually completely useless. Of course, it would be nice to have permaculture plants, or in other words, multifunctional plants that cover all kinds of aspects of the homestead. And I just have some notes down here. So in case you're wondering, why am I looking down? Because I'm actually taking some of the notes from our forage walk, actually. And I actually came to the conclusion that all plants are poisonous. So what that means is, so how does a plant actually prevent animals from eating them? Well, they have no legs, so they can't run away. So the only way for them to defend themselves is actually chemicals. So basically making themselves either unpalatable, so not a good taste, or quite possibly even poisonous. So those kind of effects definitely work on carnivores especially, but omnivores evolved to, for example, us humans actually evolved to be able to eat a few hundred different plants. And the herbivores can actually digest a lot more different plants. They've evolved to actually digest, for example, cows can digest 30,000 different plants worldwide. So they've got a lot more options in terms of what is edible out there. That's why you often see cows actually scoffing the leaves off trees if there's low-hanging branches as well. And So the idea is that we like to organize our garden in a more natural way. So that means basically a natural sort of ecosystem, but it's at the same time, it's a human-made ecosystem. A garden is just an idea. So gardens are mainly to benefit us because we put all the work into it and we want to benefit from it in some way. Usually it's to do with food, or maybe there could be some medicinal herbs in it, or there could be some material plants in it, like for example firewood. Like the willows make for great kindling as well. If you can plant those around your garden on the north side, they can block the wind, but also provide you with a bit of kindling for the winter. So we like plants like that, where you can just get multiple uses out of each of the plants. For example, willows can also produce a lot of like a pollinator food, like nectar, early on in the spring as well. So that's extremely beneficial, because once those insects are in your garden, then hopefully you can get them to stay by having lots of flowering plants that flower throughout the season, and hopefully you can even get them to overwinter after that. But today's show is not about insects. Today's show is about plants. So we also like to plant fertilizer plants like the comfrey. Comfrey is really useful because it has deep roots and it's a mineral accumulator. It can grab minerals from down low and put those up into the leaves. And if you chop the leaves and just leave them there, or use them for compost tea, you can use those to actually fertilize your cultivated plants as well. But you can also plant them directly under an apple tree, for example, or any kind of fruit tree, which is often done in permaculture. And you can get comfrey to basically chop and drop comfrey leaves and mulch your fruit tree, which usually apple trees especially have a very shallow root system. So those, they don't, they're not able to grab those minerals down low. So it's good to bring those up and then drop them on the top. And plus it stops the grass from growing as well. So it's really useful like that. Let me just check to see if there's any questions here. If you have any questions, please put those in caps. Just put question in caps at the beginning, and then ask your questions in the comments on whatever platform you're watching this. And let me just see here. So radishes are getting going quickly in my plot at Beacon Food Forest. How soon would you recommend tinning? Well, I have an interesting perspective, and thank you for the question. On tinning, I believe you should not tin at all. You should just change your planting method instead. For example, carrots, I suppose maybe even radishes can be planted in a drill, which means just basically in a row, and then you tin them out. We don't do that. We just plant any of those kind of seeds. First of all, we don't plant anything directly in the ground, like from seed, because that would be leaving them very vulnerable to the slugs, and it would be better to start seeds in a more controlled environment. But of course, with carrots, you're better off to plant those directly. And I would just prepare your garden bed or your space for the carrots or the radishes for that matter, and just make sure that you rake it so that it's nice and fine, and you have some extra material to throw on top. So what you can do then is just scatter your seeds very lightly over the top of the garden bed so that they're fairly well spread out everywhere, not just in drills, not just in lines, but throughout the whole garden bed. And then cover them with a drizzle of either compost or potting compost. Any kind of compost would do fine. Of course, potting compost or seed starting compost would be ideal because it suppresses microbials. So it helps to not rot those seeds with way too much fertility in the beginning. But if you and also it holds water very well. So if you just cover it with like a millimeter of soil, basically, or compost, or maybe 2 millimeters, just very lightly, and then water it in, and that's it. And then you don't have to do any tinning. And it seems to have worked fine for us. I mean, as long as you don't overdo it on your seed spreading when you're planting your carrots or your radishes, well then you should get a good result, and you shouldn't have to tin them. But actually, once they've grown to half size, I would start picking them where they're too near one another, and that's one way of tinning them, actually harvesting and tinning at the same time. So we do like to do that a lot in our gardens, to simply take when you need a plant, when you need some sort of plants that you're growing in your garden, you can just go and actually harvest them from where they're not desired. So basically on a path, for example. So let me just take a look here. So we've got lots of different plants here. I've got some notes here as well, but I think I'll just go through some of the plants that are tremendously useful, and I'm sure most of you have heard of them. Yarrow, for example, is just a wildflower that can be used for all sorts of things, including actually clotting the blood, which means that you could put a poultice of yarrow on an open wound, and it'll actually clot the blood. So that's why it was actually also known as soldier's woundwort back in Roman times. So, and yarrow is actually really good as well. It's very hardy, and it grows for year after year without any issues. It does always come back. And you'll find that a lot of plants actually that sometimes don't come back after the winter, or even after a drought in the summer. But mostly we lost a lot of plants after some of these cold winters that we've been having in the last couple of years. And those kind of plants we don't grow that much of anymore, like wood mallow. You guys, if for any of you that have been watching the videos from years ago, you'll probably know that we used to grow a lot of different wood mallows, like the regular purple one, but also the zebra mallow. Haven't really grown much of them lately, but some of them have come back this year. So sometimes plants can actually lay dormant and then come back. And yeah, so that's great to actually see that there is a few wood mallow plants out there. And we might actually start a few again from seed as well this year, because they are a nice plant, and they have edible leaves as well and flowers. So we also are going to grow valerian because the flowers smell really nice when they're out there in the garden. Of course, the tincture of valerian does not smell very nice, but it is useful nevertheless. And also the bees just go mad for valerian. Echinacea, the same. The bumblebees are mad for echinacea, and they look really nice out there, but they're really difficult to get started. They just need a consistent temperature to start a seed. I think that's what it comes down to. So you probably best start them in a tray, and maybe start them on a windowsill in the house, just to keep them warm. And there's no harm actually in stacking your trays that you have loaded up with seed starting compost and seeds, and you can stack those and just put them somewhere in the house. It doesn't have to be a windowsill if they're not started up yet. If they haven't grown yet, they don't need light yet. So it is, yeah. And but echinacea is one of the nicest plants there is. But just be very careful with echinacea and certain other plants like Nymphophia. That's the red hot poker. The slugs just love them, especially the young plants. If you put those in a tray and you leave them out there, the slugs are probably going to eat them the next day. Or in dahlias too. So any kind of plants like echinacea or dahlia, you do need to keep an eye on those, and just keep them in the greenhouse on a table, and keep the floor of the greenhouse very dry. For those of you who have just joined, thanks for joining. Just letting you know that you can ask me any question you have about gardening or homesteading, and you can put those in the comments, whatever platform you're watching these on, and just put the word question in the beginning, please, just so we know where the comment, or who the comment is for. So talking of dahlias, we actually didn't bother digging up the dahlias for 2 years now, and they're fine. They've come back. I didn't even mulch them with wood chips. If I had known, I would have, but they are just growing fine, and they're actually more hardy than the yacons. Unfortunately, yacons, I'm having a really hard time with the yacons this winter and actually storing those. But you can't really just leave those out there if the temperatures go down below -4 or -5 Celsius. So here in Ireland, that does happen lately in the last few years in the winters. We even had -7 or 8 in the last couple of winters. So you can lose all of your not so hardy or frost hardy crops like the oca, the yacon, a lot of those tuberous vegetables. Like, even though in the last 2 years we still haven't lost any of the dahlias, so which is wonderful. So we're going to get a huge amount of flowers again this year. So they're great for bouquets, bringing in the insects, looks nice in the garden, a bit of color in the garden too. And we just planted them from seed, and you can start, I think if you start your dahlias from seed and you plant those out there and they grow year after year, you don't have to dig those up because they're hardier. Just choose one of those mixes. Like the cheaper dahlia seeds are fine because those seem to be less cultivated varieties. So just a little tip on dahlias there, because the ones we planted, they're all mixes, different mixed colors, all in the one seed packet. We had 4 different ones now, and they're all the different kind of shapes as well, and they do very well in our garden. And by the way, the flowers and tubers are edible as well. We haven't tried those yet, but maybe we'll try this summer. I'll get Bianca to try first. What do you think, Bianca? Another plant that we're going to grow is great mullein. That is one of our favorite plants here. As many of you will know, we are growing it for the leaves. In the first year, you get a lot of leaves, like a rosette. And then in the second year, you get a flowering stalk, and you get all these yellow flowers that it keeps flowering for 3 months, I'd say, and it's attracting beneficial insects, but also you can use those flowers for medicinal purposes as well. You can make an oil. You can also use the leaves for tea as well. German chamomile, we couldn't find it as a tea. It was quite difficult to find, even though it's quite a common herb. We were looking for it loose on the internet, and we couldn't find any, not anyone that ships to here anyway. And so we just got some seeds and grew it, and sure enough, it actually came back for the 2nd year in a row. Let's see if it's coming back again this year. The German chamomile is very good, and along with what is it called? It's kind of hard to keep talking. When you have a guest on, or if you're doing an interview, at least you get breaks in between. So I see lots of you joining now. I can see you in the top corner here. I can see all 4 platforms all at once up here. At the moment, we have 16 people watching. I'm very happy with that. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions at all, just put those in the comments. For those of you who just joined, please put the word question in caps at the beginning of your question. And oh yes, feverfew is actually quite similar to chamomile, and feverfew is quite hardy as well, but it also self-seeds somewhat. We found that different plants in the garden have different weedinesses. So that basically what that means is it's spreading by itself. So if we put those into a no-dig garden, will they produce seeds maybe after 2 or 3 years? And will they then use the space and actually spread or make lots of babies all around them? So hopefully the seeds, if the plant does produce seeds, and we like to use old varieties like heirloom varieties of plants, or just the wild seeds that you can get, and grow those in the garden for just for the seeds, basically, just to naturalize it in your own garden, so to speak. So hopefully they won't be too vigorous in your garden like the raspberries are in our garden. The raspberries seem to be the most weedy plant out there. So at least in our experience. Let me just have a look here. So other plants like the fennel, for example. Finally, we got our fennel. We planted it 5 years ago, and about 3 years ago, it started fenneling, so to speak, or just basically it does produce seeds every year, but those seeds didn't germinate until the 3rd year anyway. So we got a whole little patch of fennel plants, and it's lovely to have them and you can just pull those up anytime you want and use them elsewhere in the garden, or give them to your friends, or do something else with them. But if you can get plants, if you can get plants to go to seed and then produce lots of seedlings in your garden without you having to interfere, other than making sure that the place is kept weed free, you can. It's really low maintenance. It's extremely low maintenance. So let me just have a quick look here to see if there's any questions. So I'm new to gardening, and I am having trouble with slugs eating rhubarb and broccoli. Are nematodes worth trying? I don't know if you can use nematodes against slugs, but as far as I know, nematodes are much smaller, wouldn't they be? So we do have an article about slugs, or how to reduce slug pressure, on our website. If you just go to our website and just go to the search and put in slug, and then you'll find it. So the first thing I would do is start your seedlings in a greenhouse on a table in a tray, so that the water doesn't run down the table and wet the ground. So not to give the slugs a chance to come in. I'd put wood chips on the ground, so to make it nice to walk on, but also keep it dry. And the slugs don't like that. If you can plant out strong, healthy seedlings into your no-dig garden beds out there, hopefully those have been there for a while, and the soil life is healthy in them. So if those seedlings go into a healthy no-dig garden bed, those will grow very quickly. And slugs are the recyclers of the cold temperate climate. So the slugs, actually, their job in the ecosystem is a bit like the termite and the ant in the arid climates in the world, is basically to just eat all decaying plant matter. And if you have any kind of plants that are stressed, for example, those will send out stress signals, basically. I don't know how it works. It's probably the slugs somehow know, by maybe they can smell the plant, or maybe they can see the plant, and the slugs somehow know that that plant is actually stressed, and then it knows that the defenses are down, so then they go and eat that plant first. And the way we know that is simply by I was out in the garden. This was like 10 years ago now, even at a different garden, and we had some nettles. We had some lettuces actually grown in a garden bed, and there was a thistle right there beside it. So I just pulled up the thistle and left it there in the middle of the day. Then I came back to close the chickens at night, and I looked down with the flashlight, and sure enough, there was 10 slugs all over that nettle plant. The thistle plant, and they didn't even go near the lettuces right beside them. So it goes to show that really, when you pull up the weeds or any kind of plant matter, like the old leaves off your plants that you're growing, don't leave those in the garden right beside your actual produce that's grown. Take those away and maybe feed them to the chickens. If you don't have chickens yet, you can put them in a compost pile, but just make sure that you keep it away from your plants that you're growing. Because it only attracts slugs, and you're feeding the slugs. As soon as you pull up a weed and you throw it on the ground, you're just feeding the slugs. That's all you're doing, and you're weakening the plants. Our website is, hang on a second, there it is. So Kevin here is asking, what is your favorite herb to grow? Well, that's a good question. So when we're talking about herbs, I assume we're talking about herbaceous perennials. That's usually, so that means that's a plant that has no woody material in it, really. Like, it's not a plant that grows tall like a tree or a bush or a shrub. So for herbs, for example, like kitchen herbs, we love growing anything like thyme or oregano are extremely reliable, but also lovage as well. Lovage is very reliable to grow, and it also goes to seed, so you can collect those, as well as the fennel. So we could actually, I couldn't really pick one out of them all, but fennel is really good But in terms of flavor, I don't know. Time, I guess, for flavor overall. But there are other herbs that we like to grow, like the marigolds, calendula, or the great mullein, the Olympic mullein. We also like to grow different plants like rhubarb, but I guess you wouldn't really class that as a herb. It's more of a vegetable, I guess, that you'd eat, because you're not eating the leaves. No problem at all. You're welcome. So let me just check to see if there's any other questions here. Guys, if you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments. So Dewey's asking dahlias, question mark. I don't know what you mean. If you would like to formulate that into a question, I can answer it for you. Let me just take a look here. Okay, so we have no questions at the moment. So actually, lovage is actually a plant that you can divide as well, where you can take a crown division, where you can take up the crown and cut it up. With rhubarb, traditionally enough, that's what people do, so you can get the exact same variety. But with rhubarb, it's actually safe enough. You can use the seed, maybe not from your own plants, unless you have only that variety of rhubarb growing and flowering. You can collect seeds, and those will be viable, as long as you have a few rhubarb plants that are going to seed at the same time. So we have collected seeds from our own rhubarb plants before, but we haven't crossed them yet. So we might have some of them actually going to seed, but in general, rhubarb, we only grow rhubarb from seed. It's not really worthwhile digging up those plants and dividing them. It's unnecessary. And you know what? Rhubarb plants can actually grow for 50 or 60 years, apparently. Maybe even longer. If any of you guys out there know how long a rhubarb plant can grow, please let me know in the comments. Now, shikikuri is definitely our favorite pumpkin plant to grow. So, or maybe you'd call it a winter squash in some places in the world, like the US. And the ushikikuri is a Japanese pumpkin. It's also known as kuri or red kuri. And it's really good. It's easy to grow, and it fruits really quickly. So it only needs about 90 days to mature, same as the potato, as it happens. So just keep them frost-free. Don't plant your pumpkins out if you're based in Ireland and you're not based in Kerry. I would plant pumpkins out definitely after the last chance of frost, otherwise you might lose them all, unless you have a means of covering them if there is a light frost at the end of May. So 1st of June probably is better, but I prefer to get the to grow those pumpkins on in pots first, like at least 1 liter. At first you can start them off in trays, maybe do a ½ liter or 1 liter pots, or even 2 liters. You can pot them up to so that they grow into fairly substantial plants by the time you grow them and plant them out. We do have a pumpkin video on our YouTube channel and on our website. So if you want to take a look at that, we had a huge pumpkin harvest, and that was as long as 2.5 years ago. And we have not grown pumpkins. 2 years ago, it was just didn't happen, and we didn't have the room for them. And last year, all of the seeds we had weren't germinating. So I think maybe not wash them with hot water when you're cleaning them, and when you're taking them, when you're saving them from your pumpkins. All right. So Jessie there is saying that she planted a rhubarb plant in 1988 and still going strong in North Dakota at my parents' farm, at her parents' farm. So that's cool. Yeah, no, geez, that's a very must be a very big rhubarb plant. I saw a rhubarb plant in Athlone here in the Midlands of Ireland before, and it was been about 15 years ago now. But I saw it, and it was probably about 50 years, maybe 40 years old, and it was like a mound of like 1 meter or 3 feet across, and it was just like it was just popping up out of the ground like. And there was actually rhubarb stalks coming out of it, the size of my arm. Like it's like literally like that thick of rhubarb stalks. So I'd say 1 stalk probably would make a couple of rhubarb pies. You know, it's definitely good going if you can make more than 1 pie with 1 stalk of rhubarb. You're definitely doing something right if you're able to do that. So lovage is extremely useful for many things medicinally. I'm not sure about it, but you can use it in soups and stocks. It's really good for soups. And it's also in Germany, actually. It's known as the Maggi-Kraut. So it's actually like the Maggi herb, because there is actually a vegetable concentrate that a lot of Germans would eat. And but in English, it's called lovage. And it is a lovely plant. It attracts beneficial insects galore as well, especially a lot of the shield beetles as well, the shield bugs. Yeah, they are called shield beetles. Let me just take a look and see. So lovage plants actually flower very similarly. They produce seeds as well. I think it's an umbrellica plant, but it's kind of about the same format when it flowers as the fennel plants. So fennel and lovage are kind of similar in size as it grows. And both are extremely reliable. And no matter what kind of droughts you get in the summer, and no matter what kind of cold you get in the winter, those plants will produce for you year after year. Probably for fennel, for example, we've got fennel out there 11 or 12 months of the year. So those are the kind of plants we like, where we don't even have to bother actually drying the herbs and putting them in jars, preserving them even, or even freeze them. So any kind of plants that are both perennial are low maintenance, so we don't have to replant them, and they keep building on the root structure from last year. So they keep increasing their network, the root network, and also all those relationships with the local ecology. For example, fungi like the wine cap or King Stropharia mushroom, that will benefit it. And there is other symbiotic relationships that all of these plants have and take part in your local ecosystem, like the soil life will be benefiting from any kind of plants that you're putting in. That's why people recommend cover crops rather than leaving your garden beds blank or even covered with plastic for the off season. It would be better to put green manure on it. That's what they call it. And we don't do cover cropping at all because we mostly plant perennials. That's because when I planted a lot of vegetables, like annual vegetables years ago, well, I always stick a few perennials in between every year, and then the whole garden bed, or even the whole garden, turns into a perennial garden eventually after a few years, after as little as 3 or 4 years even. And then I just start another garden over here. And you probably have seen some of the gardens that we've started. You can actually go to our website. Again, it's gardensforlife.ie. And you can take a look at our videos in our gardens there. If you type in pizza garden, for example, that will give you an idea of one of those many gardens that you can make with very little effort, considering the productivity that you get from it. So we only I think it took maybe about a month to build the pizza garden, and to prepare the soil takes a little bit longer, but it's mainly just to kill off the weeds. But then you can also very easily bring in your compost, and after you smother the weeds, then you can plant it up and just leave it alone. Even with annuals, it'll be okay for a couple of months or even 3 months. And then all you need to do is keep harvesting. Now, that's the way it is in the first season. In the second season, it may be a little more weedy, but it's okay. Like, it can be dealt with. Hello, how are you doing? Dewey, is that how you say your name? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. I was saying dahlias. Yes, I was mentioning dahlias earlier. So dahlias are edible, both the tuber and the flower. But if you grow them from seed, and especially if you grow the kind of varieties that are more a standard variety, not like something extremely specialized, you have a good chance that those plants will become way hardier than anything that you can buy in the shop, like a stool or like a tuber that you can grow, like in a garden center. I highly recommend growing all of these plants from seed if you can, or from a cutting. Of course, you can do cuttings as well, but in general, herbaceous perennials, so any plant that dies back to the ground in the winter, if you have lots of frost in your area. By lots, I mean like extended periods of time, let's say, not necessarily extreme low temperatures, but if you have a good old frost, a few weeks of frost, in the winter, like -3 or 4 or 5, you can call it a herbaceous perennial if it dies back, and then it comes back the next year. Although sometimes, like some of the plants will grow taller and taller, like berry bushes, for example, like currants and maybe even gooseberries. So those keep building up and they keep branching out, but herbaceous perennials simply, they just start again after a winter. So that's what they do. But they may not be able to keep the existing growth, so that dies back with the frost, the first frost. But after the winter is over and in the next spring, those plants will be able to grow on much quicker and take off way faster than something that you freshly planted from seed that year. Of course, so herbaceous perennials build on the root structure that they had from last year. So, and that is always handy, and it's of course again it's in a whole other way of gardening. That's why I'm personally completely transitioning from no-dig gardening, even regular old till gardening or dig gardening, where you actually dig up the soil, you turn it over, and you get rid of all the weeds, and you also kill half the worms by turning it over, and you're getting rid of the soil structure. So I don't do any of that anymore. That's backbreaking work. I'd rather do no-dig gardening. So we just smother the weeds and cover the ground with compost, a good thick layer, and you grow in that. But if you want to go to the next level, in my opinion, you need to start doing some back to Eden or forest gardening, or it's also known as lasagna gardening, where you simply cover that no-dig garden beds, or those no-dig garden beds, or the grow space with an extra layer of wood chips. So the wood chips prevent any kind of airborne weed seeds from germinating, so you have less weeding to do, and they also block the sunlight, so that the sun in the summertime doesn't dry out the ground and kill the soil life, especially UV. And also it breaks down slowly as it gets digested by the soil life. So you can sorry, I've gone awful dry. Jesus, I can't believe we've gone for 45 minutes. Hope I'm not keeping you too long. And thank you for those of you still sticking around. So let me just take a look. Yeah, so lasagna gardening or forest gardening is definitely the way forward, I think, especially if you want to expand your garden beyond the regular size, and if you want that garden to provide you with more of your needs, make you more self-sufficient, because things grow year after year, or even self-seed, but also self-reliant as well, because you have a certain amount of the things that you need. Your basic needs are covered for a while anyway, so that's self-reliance. And that's the stuff we teach on our Homestead introduction course. For those of you who are not in Ireland, unfortunately we don't have an online course of that yet, but if you are nearby, or if you're in Ireland at least, then it might be worthwhile taking a look at our events page. Again, I'll just put a link here on the comments, or in the comments. So a second now. So we have lots of events coming up, even Homesteaders of Ireland swap meet on the 12th of May. So please pencil that in. We're going to actually announce more details on our website shortly in the next week or so. And it's going to be great. It's going to be just like the seed and plant swaps we've had. It's free entry, but also we're going to have people actually teaching each other skills as well. So if you'd like to take part of that, please let us know. And it's going to be all a casual event anyway, where we basically teach each other homesteading skills for those of you who want to teach them, but also it might actually get more people curious about homesteading as well. And of course, seeds and plants will be really the main attraction. Of course, people bringing those in, and it's an honesty system where people can take whatever they like. So let me just take a look and see. Have we got any other questions? Do you have any other questions? And I've got this list of plants here, and it is, you probably can't read that from there, but there is quite a few different plants. I mean, we could go on forever. Definitely a new one is going to be Angelica that I'm going to grow. So, and bronze fennel as well. Let me just take a look. Motherwort is also a good plant to grow. It self-seeds eventually after 2 or 3 years. I like perennial onions as well, like the, not the Egyptian onion so much, a little bit the Egyptian onion, but the potato onion is great if you can find it. We have very little of it left, so we might have to grow it on for 2 years and before we can make it available again to you. Elephant garlic is really good. It's, you know that all garlic is actually in the leek family, and garlic is perennial, believe it or not. You don't have to harvest it. You can simply just leave it in the ground, put it somewhere for 2 or 3 years, and then harvest it whenever you want. You don't have to even harvest the whole plant. You can just harvest one piece at a time, or one clove at a time. Depending on what way they grow, if you let them grow for a few years, you get a big clump like that, and you can just harvest one at a time on the outside of the clump. So that works, but it's, of course, it's less efficient to grow garlic perennially because you could do better by spacing them out once a year, of course. If you leave it in, it's not going to be as effective, but you will get about probably at least half of the yield that you would have normally, and it takes up less space. So it's really a win-win situation if you have time. If you have time, if you're willing to let that part of the garden go for a year or 2 or 3, and if you're willing to wait for a harvest. Like the Chinese used to say, probably from thousands of years ago, don't count your days' productivity by what you harvested, but instead by what you planted or how much you planted. So that's really a good wisdom, because when you start getting into forest gardening or even lasagna gardening, where you cover the ground with wood chips, you will come across a lot of methods where you simply use all of the space in the ecosystem, all 7 layers of the forest, and you are mimicking a forest floor with the wood chips, by the way. That's why it's also known as forest gardening. Even if there's no canopy trees involved, we usually don't bother with those in Ireland, because in a forest garden system or food forest system, you can't really have a canopy layer on top of the fruit trees, like the apple trees or pears or plums. That doesn't really work. There isn't enough sunlight for that here in the summer for those fruits to actually ripen and do well. So we have 6 layers here in Ireland we use. So let me know about if you have any questions at all. Just put those in the comments wherever you're watching this. We are streaming live to a couple of different YouTube channels. Our Birdland Homestead channel, that's our homesteading channel. So if you're not on that yet, please go over there and take a look at it and subscribe. We'd highly appreciate that. So that's Birdland Homestead. Maybe Bianca could get a link for that. And we also are streaming to our Gardens for Life YouTube channel, and eventually that will go to Odyssey and Rumble as well, and Facebook and Twitter. Yes, I'm not calling it X, because if you have to keep referring to it as formerly known as Twitter, well, then your branding is not very good. Sorry, Elon. Have you got any questions? Please let me know. I see a question mark. So Escape to Rural Wales on YouTube says, I have just planted some willow as a windbreak for an orchard. I have done a video on it. Oh, cool. I'll have a look. I'll take a look at that. Is your YouTube channel Escape to Rural Wales, is it? Because we will check it out. How long can I expect the willows to be of a decent height? Or, you know, I guess you're asking me how quickly will they grow? Is it biomass willow? Is it hybrid willow? If it is, we get 12 foot a year out of it. And if you mulch it, you can grow it 2 or 3 times as fast. So definitely with willow, I would cut it back every winter for the first few years, and then it'll bush out more and make more branches. And you'd be surprised, even in the winter time when the leaves are off, it still blocks the wind as well. So we planted ours on the northwest side of the property to block the northwesterly winds, which are usually both cold and intense. So a lot of the hurricane winds are coming from southwest here in Ireland. Maybe that's similar where you're at in Wales. But we always have to block the west side, and we usually plant a shelter belt. So we have a shelter belt video on our channel and our website. So we use willow mostly, but we also interplant some fruit trees, like wild fruit trees, like sloe berries, hawthorn, a little bit of hawthorn in there, because we have so much hawthorn all around us in the hedgerows here. It's not really worth planting much of it because there is already enough of it. So we also interplant elderberry, sometimes a bit of sea buckthorn. Sea buckthorn is really good for blocking the wind. And so there isn't really much now that you can do to block the wind, unless in the winter time, unless you're either planting an awful lot of willows, for example, because those are deciduous and they lose the leaves, of course, in the winter. And in the summertime, they're really good because they actually block the wind early on in the summer, let's say maybe, or halfway through the summer. They will have grown to about 2 meters or 3 meters tall, and block the wind, especially towards the end of the summer, like August, September. That's when your vegetable plants will need a lot of support, because in the beginning they're still a little bit tender, but if you have pumpkins, for example, or courgettes, we found that there's an awful lot of wind damage if you don't block the wind. And as a great man, Toby Hemingway, once said, if you block the wind, your fruit trees will grow twice as fast. You probably have heard of Toby Hemingway, I assume, from permaculture. If not, he has a great book, and it's all about the whole home scale permaculture. So that's small scale. It's probably a 10 to up to an acre, maybe up to a tenth of an acre. But if you have a bit more space, if you have more than an acre, I'd highly recommend you check out Mark Shepherd, and his book is called Restoration Agriculture. So that is for farm scale, but you can definitely take a lot from that book and apply it to your homestead. I presume your channel is a homestead channel. Would that be correct? Can I see, is that a Land Rover on your thumbnail, on your channel picture? I can only see it really, really small, so I can't really tell. But we'll definitely check out your channel. And it'll be interesting to see other people's homesteads. Unfortunately, most people that have homesteads, of course, don't make videos. I mean, I can understand it does take an awful lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to make videos every week or even daily, and get those up there, edit them and put them up and all that. So we do try our best to put out as much content as we can, but that's why our homesteading channel, Birdland Homestead, is definitely going to be a place where we're going to post up a lot of content that is not gardening related. Our Gardens for Life channel is more about gardening, but we did kind of cross over a little bit. Sometimes we post videos on both channels, but we do want to build up the homesteading channel a little bit. So for any of you watching this now on our Gardens for Life channel, for example, or on Facebook, please go on over to YouTube and go to our Birdland Homestead channel and subscribe. We'd highly appreciate it. Let me just take a look here. Yes, Restoration Agriculture by Mark Shepherd. Brilliant book. So one thing I took away from Mark Shepherd was the method that he uses to manage his orchard. Or it's not really an orchard, it's a farm, but he uses tree cropping. So there is nut trees and fruit trees planted in rows on his farm, and he leaves some space in between for growing annual vegetables or even livestock grazing. So Mark Shepard actually does something, he calls it stun. We need to look that up, Bianca. Stun, sheer, total, utter neglect. I think that's what it means. So he basically says plant your place up, plant more in the beginning than you think you should. Like, don't wait for a few years before you plant your trees. Plant your trees straight away, and just see what does well. And if there's any plants in it that don't do too well, don't baby those along. Just ignore them, like stun, sheer, total, utter neglect. So it's a really good way to do it, because your hardier plants that actually want to live in your local microclimate will actually do very well for you. Like sea buckthorn does very well for us here, and we're starting to grow it now. We have males and females, a few different varieties, and we probably have cross-pollination as well. So maybe we'll grow some of the seeds from those as well. We also get other plants like hardy kiwi is really interesting. I'd say hardy kiwi will do very well in your place there in Wales. And those can be grown outdoors. They're just the original kiwis. They're the size of grapes, actually. They're not like the giant kiwis you get in the supermarket that we have all become accustomed to. And sorry, I'm just always taking a look here, because yes, there it is. Thank you, Bianca. So yeah, no, Mark Shepard is definitely worth looking up. If you want to check out our website and just type into the search inspired or inspire, you'll find our list of people that have inspired us. And now, if you're not on that list, and if you did inspire us, don't worry, we're still working on it. We're always updating it. We have basically made a list of all the wonderful people in the world that have done great things in this space. Not only homesteading, not only gardening or farming, not only how to start a business, ecology and economy, all kinds of different people that have made a huge difference. And what we're doing here with all of this, with Gardens for Life and Birdland Homestead and Birdland Studio and Birdland Cottage, all of that is kind of a amalgamation. It's like basically all of the things that we've learned over the years have come together and manifested themselves into this. So we like to show people and give credit where it's due, and let people know where we got our inspiration from. And we also like to visit places that are similar to our place, like homesteads, for example, but also market gardens can be quite interesting to visit. The trouble is, though, market gardeners are very busy, and you'll know all about it if you're watching this, Charles. There's actually a quick time for a quick plug. If you live near Loughrea in County Galway in Ireland, you can go to Bull on Ark on, I think he has a Facebook account, the Bull on Ark. They sell some wonderful vegetables. So let me just take a look. We could do an entire hour of a show just on who inspired us, to be quite frank. I mean, look, I think this is the list, and I've only done about half of this side and not the other side. So I'll just go through a few of them real quick, because we've gone over an hour, but you're still watching, so I'll still keep going for a short while anyway, for a few minutes. So catmint grows very well here, but also asparagus has been mixed results. So from seed, it seems to do better than from crowns. Maybe it's the shock of being transplanted, even though it's in the winter. Surely asparagus should be okay. But I got some asparagus before that 10 crowns, and it just didn't grow. None of them grew. So I found that from seed, when you grow asparagus from seed, it does better. And by the way, Bianca, we need to grow lots of asparagus this year. We really need to plant some asparagus, because it's awesome. And you could always preserve it as well. So what other plants do we have here? So kales as well. We don't actually bother with cabbage at all anymore, because cabbage takes up a lot of space in your garden, and it also takes 6 months to actually grow into a head. and then it's probably infested with slugs. But the best thing you can do is you can grow kale instead, because you can harvest one leaf at a time. So and some of the kale plants are actually self-seeding, like the red Russian kale, for example, and Sutherland that we've tried. And even the Portuguese kale actually self-seeds as well. But other kales are perennial, like Taunton Dean and Debbenton or Dobbenton kale. And the Portuguese kale is perennial as well, but it's short-lived, so it doesn't really like our winters here. But you can grow kale from a simple cutting, and you don't have to ever buy seeds again. And there's definitely a bit of virtue to that, if that's the right word. So we also are growing trees from seed as well. We're going to grow silver birch and a few other trees from seed, like hawthorn. And we also have chestnuts as well. So we always like to grow horse chestnuts. Unfortunately, sweet chestnuts don't grow here. And I am a little bit jealous of people that can grow sweet chestnut, because it's one of the best trees you can grow for food security and for oils and things like that for long term. Great way to also create like what Mark Shepard has created, basically an environment where you can send the pigs, for example. You grow your nut trees and all your fruit trees, and then you get your pigs to actually clean up basically the rows between the livestock. So it's a really good way to use the livestock to actually manage your harvests as well. Horseradish is one that we'll always grow and comfrey, and we have lots of different mint varieties as well. I'll just go through these real quick because I don't want to drag it out any longer. So we also have root vegetables like mashua, oca, yacon, and madeira vine, tiger nuts, Chinese artichokes, marsh woundwort. All of those plants can be easily grown year after year, so you don't ever have to buy seed again. Just some of them are actually frost hardy. Like the yacon is not frost hardy at all, and the oca not very. So keep those stored very well. The rest of them should do okay outside. Although our madeira vine in the greenhouse is doing much better than outdoors. Jacob's ladder is a good plant to grow for just attracting beneficial insects in the garden. All right, so we might finish up now, but I'll just check to see if there's any questions now. Have I had any success with growing celeriac? What about sweet potatoes? Sweet potatoes, we'd like to, but we don't have enough room in the greenhouses. We're just growing other things in the greenhouse, like figs and, unfortunately, goji berries, which haven't fruited yet. We use our greenhouse space for other things, but celeriac, so sweet potatoes, we don't really have the space for it indoors. Not sure if you can grow it outdoors very well here. I heard not so good. Better off to grow it in a greenhouse, but maybe we'll get another greenhouse someday and have more room to plant annual vegetables, like even tomato and peppers. So celeriac, I know you need to have, I think the seeds need light to germinate, so you need to put those on top of the soil, or maybe only cover them just about a tiny bit with potting soil. I would even just push them into the soil and then water them in, and that's in a tray in a greenhouse now on a table. And celeriac seeds are definitely kind of hard to germinate, same as echinacea, but echinacea just needs consistent heat, 20 to 25 degrees, 24 hours a day for a few weeks, 2-3 weeks. Celeriac needs light to germinate, as far as I remember. I haven't really grown much of it. It's not really the kind of vegetable we'd like. We prefer celery. I know celeriac is a nice vegetable, though, for the winter, especially when it's cold out there and you want to make a soup. Definitely might grow a bit of valerian, that too, celeriac this year. So if you have no more questions, we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you the next time. So next time is every Thursday, 9 p.m. GMT, so that's Dublin time. Well, thanks for joining. And oh, geez, I did not know that you can make mash out of celeriac, kind of like mashed potato, I guess, but with a different flavor for sure. So again, we didn't even talk about plants from cuttings, but we'll do that the next time. And if you have any questions, line those up for the next time. You can ask me anything about homesteading, plants, gardening, how to grow food using no-dig or forest gardening. We can also answer questions about chicken keeping and how to start a business or business in general. So you can even email us the questions. And if you want to attend one of our events in person, if you live in Ireland and if you're not too far from us, you can go to our website. It's just gardensforlife.ie /events. And we have a lot of different courses and workshops coming up in the next month or two. So also join us for the Homesteaders of Ireland swap meet on the 12th of May. More details on our website in the next week. See you the next time. Bye-bye.